Hello, welcome to Mr. Paul's Pantry. I'm Mr. Paul. Nice to see you all back again, and if you're new here, a very, very warm welcome. Now, I'm a bit of a change today. I'm not baking today. I'm going to make a hot meal for myself, and I'm making a pork casserole with apple cider, and it really is a tasty, tasty meal. So, let's do it. There's the pork. I bought some shoulder pork. It looks very, very nice. It's got a nice little bit of fat in it. I'll be cutting that up into smaller pieces. I've also got some lardons of bacon here. If you can't buy lardons like this, just buy some slices of back bacon and cut it up small. I've got a small onion. I've got some celery. I've got some fresh sage, sorry, I couldn't think of the name. Some fresh sage there. You can use dried if you haven't got any. I've got a tablespoonful of flour, plain flour, some shallots. I've got some crème fraîche, chicken stock, some cider, dry cider, some grain mustard, whole grain mustard, a little butter, and some cooking oil. So there we are. Now we'll get on with making the casserole. Right, we'll start off with the meat, first of all. This pork I've purchased has got the bone in, so I'm going to... It only has a small amount of bone at the end there, like that. So I'm going to just cut round that, and then we'll get rid of the bone. So now we'll cut up the piece of shoulder of pork. This is some nice chunks of pork. Now these bits of bone that I'm taking out here, I will be making some stock later today, so they'll go in with that. There's our pork all ready. Now we'll get on with the vegetables. Now the very first thing we're going to do is we're going to put half of the oil that we've got into the casserole. Half of it. Get it hot, and then we're going to put in the lardons of bacon. And they're going to cook away now until they're reasonably crispy. We don't want them wet and soggy. We want to crisp them up a little bit, but all the flavour will come out into that oil now. Can you see that in there? I think you can. Turn the heat up slightly. Once these start crisping up, we can lift them out with a slotted spoon and put them onto a side dish there. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to add some of the pork. Turn the heat up slightly, and we're going to add some of the pork just to brown it off a little bit. Don't overload the pan, otherwise we'll start boiling the meat instead of frying it. This just gets a nice crust on both sides of the pork, a nice crust, and that's where some of the flavour comes from. What we're actually doing is we're caramelising the sugars in the meat, and that all helps to add flavour to the final dish. Just make sure they're all nicely browned. Okay, here's the last of the pork coming out. It's all nicely sealed. See there? Set that to one side until we carry on with the onion. So we're going to put in half the butter now, along with the fat that's already in here, left from the pork, etc. Half that, and then put that on a medium heat and pop in the onions. We're going to cook those gently. We don't want to fry them to death. We want to just soften them nicely in that, there you are, just in that fat that's in the bottom there. So it's on a medium heat, about 3/4 of what you would normally cook on. Now the onions are softening nicely, so we're going to add back the bacon and the pork into the onions. We're going to give that a little mix. Turn the heat up, and we're going to add to that now the stock and the cider. There's the stock going in, and there's the cider going in. Give it a little stir again. I want to just bring that up to a simmer. I've got my oven set now at 170. If you want to use a fan oven, I'm not using a fan oven on mine today. Fan oven is always 20 degrees or thereabouts less than a normal oven. So 150 centigrade for your fan oven, 170 for the normal oven. Now this is coming to a simmer now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first of all take a sheet of aluminium foil, and that's going on top of the casserole dish first before the lid. This is because when we go in the oven we don't want to lose a lot of the liquid in there quickly. We want the meat to cook nice and gently, and then we'll thicken it up afterwards and get the sauce just right. So now we're going to go on with the piece of foil and on with the lid, and that will just seal it a little bit there, and that's going to go in the oven at, as I said, 170, and that'll stay there for about 1.5 hours. Now this little step is a mistake I made. I should have browned these when I did the onions. I should have taken the onions out, and when I browned the meat and everything, and done them in the same pan, and I completely forgot. So I'm browning them off now. They just need to be coloured on all round, just to give them a bit of colour when they come out of the final dish. Now the casserole's had about an hour and 20 minutes in there. That's very, very hot. Whoops! An hour and 20 minutes. So we're going to take the lid and the foil off and have a look inside. And the meat is very, very tender. I think you can see that okay on the camera. I hope you can. And now we're going to add in the shallots that I've just browned, which I should have done earlier, I forgot, and the celery. That's all going in together. Now this is going back in the oven for another 30 minutes. to cook the vegetables I've just put in. So in we go, back in the oven, foil and the lid, down and off we go. So here we are now, we've got another 30 minutes in the oven, and all the vegetables now, you have a look, the shallots are all cooked and the celery is all cooked, and that's looking delightful. Now what we've got to do now is, I've mixed the flour that we had and the remaining butter into a paste. Can you see that? Just a paste. Now this is going to be put into here, and then we're just going to let it turn the heat on, let it simmer a little, because it's just come out of the oven, so it won't take very long, and that will thicken the juice in there to a nice consistency. If you need to thicken it any more, then you can do so with a little more flour and butter, or if you're necessary, you can put a little corn flour or something like that. But I'm going to do that. Just let it thicken now, and just cook it light until the flour thickens. Now I'm adding the grain mustard, the crème fraîche. So we'll mix that up nicely. Simmer it for 1 or 2 minutes, that's all. Everything's well cooked, we don't need to do anything else to it. If you want to add some pepper at this stage, you can, or salt. I'm going to have a taste now, but I don't think it needs any. No, for me that's quite perfect. I don't need any salt or any pepper in it at all. And there we are. Beautiful. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, go down below, give it a thumbs up for me, let me know you enjoyed it. And if you have any comments or suggestions or questions, leave them down below as well. If you want to look at the whole recipe, if you go below the video, you'll see it'll say show more. If you click on that, it'll open the recipe up for you, and there's also a link to my website where you can see the whole recipe as well. So Mr. Paul saying bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Bye.